Alrighty, welcome everybody to our presentation here for the Heathen Confederation of Canada, which is an inclusive voice for heathenry. You will have three hosts today, one being myself, Eric Lashardy, the national representative of the Heathen Confederation of Canada. A little bit about myself, I've been a heathen now for over a decade, participate quite actively in my local heathen community, such as at Ravensnoll, with my kindred, Runetier kindred, as well as my other tradition, Frankish tradition, the Frankish Sido. And I've been the national representative now since the inception, provisionally, and also elected since 2021. So that's myself. I'll pass it over to William.
Well, I'm William Vandervorst. I'm located in Saskatchewan, Canada here. I've been practicing heathenry for coming on 23 years now, one way or another. And I'm active in a kindred that's located in both Saskatchewan and Manitoba. So yeah, a little bit about me. Go ahead, Ellen.
Hi, my name's Ellen Cotter, and I'm from Ottawa, and not originally. No one's originally from here. And I've been a heathen for about 10 years now, give or take. I'm also active in the Ravensnoll community, and I'm a military spouse, which informs a lot of what I do here. I'm a national councillor, and I was acclaimed back in the fall.
Alrighty, so before starting as well, we want to give a small trigger and content warning as well. So some of the content presented here may be triggering to some participants. This includes a discussion of topics of racism, white supremacy, extremism, and violence against marginalized peoples. And the content has been kept to a minimum. There are no graphic depictions of any of these topics. Which have been included in this presentation. So we're just going to talk and touch about a few things. As a participant, if you feel that the HCC can improve upon the presentation of our content in a way that can be further minimize impacts to our audience, please feel free to contact us at Heathen Confederation Canada at gmail.com. I'd also like to give a land acknowledgement. So we national councillors of the Heathen Confederation of Canada presenting here today acknowledge we are speaking to you from Treaty 4 territory and the Métis homeland Saskatchewan, so for William in Capel, as well as the unceded traditional territory of the Algonquin-Anishinaabe Nation and Region 6 of the Métis Nation of Ontario for those of us in Ottawa. And we pay our respect to the First Nations and Métis ancestors of this place and reaffirm our commitment to truth and reconciliation. So firstly, I'd like to take this time to kind of walk through modern heathenry, and then we'll get to the inception of the HCC, what it is that we are doing, and how others can help us in that process moving forward with the HCC if they so feel. So for this, we're using a updated Yarn-Saxa scale. If no one knows what a Yarn-Saxa scale is, I believe it was developed well, it was developed a few decades ago, perhaps the Troth, I'm not 100% certain originally, but it was a scale that determined how quote unquote folkish or universalist groups were. And the folkish/universalist dichotomy is something that a lot of groups and organizations have somewhat moved away from. This one here is updated. And it was updated by Austin Lawrence of Ravensnoll. So here we have an inclusivity scale of 0 to 5, 5 being the most inclusive, 0 being labels that are given to them are folkish. They include quote unquote whites, they exclude quote unquote non-whites, or in brackets what they would consider race traitors, and they are white supremacists. Moving on, the inclusivity scale 1, we have folkish, also including whites, excluding quote unquote non-whites, and they're white separatists largely. or supremacists as well, but it's fluid and it's a spectrum. Then on 2, we have ethnic tribalists, so those who include only Northern Europeans, exclude anyone who they consider to be inauthentic. That could be in their practice or any other aspect that doesn't conform. And their ideology is ethnic tribalism. Then we have the tribalist for inclusivity rank 3. And these include Northern Europeans or their close friends, people they consider to be a part of the tribe. They exclude those who they consider inauthentic, and they are neo-tribalist in their ideology. On the inclusivity rank 4, we have those who are considered universalists. They included anyone. They excluded largely no one. And their ideology was heathen universalism. And moving on to inclusivity rank 5, we have label here is radical, but radically inclusive, including anyone, excluding those who are racist and obviously white separatists, extremists, and so on. And the ideology is largely driving the religion towards an anti-racist standpoint, which is where the HCC finds itself and our members. So just a brief timeline here also of modern heathenry. Using the Yarns-Axis scale as well. So the blue names are radical or universalist, and the red is the tribalist, ethnic tribalists, folkish, and volkish. So modern heathenry does have its roots back in the Germanic Romanticism period, so from the 1700s, 1800s. And this moved on through Ariosophy, Armanism, the Thule Society, Anglicanism, which is the Red Mills' Odinism. And then in 1972, you had the Alsotruffeligeth in Iceland, which was established by Sveinbjörn Beinteynsen. And also roughly around that same time, the Alsotruf Folk Assembly with Stephen McNallen, 1972 as well. And this timeline moves on forward with the Odinic Rite, various offshoots of, we have the Asaltru Alliance. Back in 76, we also had the Odish belief that came around with who we all know as Garmin Lord, I believe it was Thomas St. Germain. And then continuing on, we have in Denmark, we have the Troth in 1987. In 97, we have Forn Sither. And then kind of moving towards up into Canada, the Heathen Freehold Society of BC in 2002. Then we had in 2015, the Alsotruf community. Those seem to be flipped a bit. It may have been 15 or 17. And Ravensknoll was established before 2017. It was actually in 2012. But anyways, continuing on with Declaration 127 and the Heathen Confederation of Canada incorporated in 2021. And so that's just to show that modern heathenry, as much as people would like to try and explain away some of the roots that we do have in racist ideologies, it is present, and that's something that we are responsible with moving away from. So building the HCC. Out of Ginnungagap. So a lot of things happened early on that came together to slowly encourage heathens in Canada to form our confederation. So at Hale and Horn Gathering in 2014 was the Thor year. Each year with Hale and Horn, the previous year, we end up voting as a group as to which god pole we're going to raise the following year. And in 2013, it was decided and voted upon it would be Thor. And with Thor comes a lot of, obviously, heavily masculine warrior ethic stuff that comes up. But what we wanted to try and do there as an organization is kind of move it a lot more towards some of the agrarian side and the sorceress side of Thor as well. And then the following year, the Skadi year, that was the birth of, and you may have seen it, the hashtag Hapamal Witches, movement, which was to call out the toxic masculinity and the misogynistic attitudes of a lot of heathens at the time and currently. Then in 2015, 2016, various heathens from Ottawa, Montreal, and Toronto came together to discuss forming a common bond, which was it's called the Midland Regional Heathen Common Bond. So basically, it would be a group or a set idea of principles that we would share within that golden triangle. In 2017, the AFA outwardly began to identify as a white religion. Charlottesville happened in 2017. Quebec City mosque shooting as well in 2017. There's an anti-migrant movement that started to obviously get royal up in Canada with the Soldiers of Odin as well in 2018. McNallen founded the Wotan Network in 1718. There's the Christchurch mosque shooting in 2019. And from all of those tragedies in 2020, we came together as a provisional council to form the Heathen Confederation of Canada as the national voice of inclusive heathens in our country. And it was born out of the concept of investing in our own identity, because it became apparent that if we as heathens, inclusive heathens, don't invest in who we are as inclusive heathens or as heathens in general, somebody else might come along and invest for us and take heathenry in a direction that is unacceptable. And so investing in our own identity, first of all, we have to be, as heathens, and at least through the HCC, we have to be honest about modern heathenry's past racism. We can no longer sweep that under the rug. Not saying that any of us here do, but there are a lot of organizations that feel they don't want to be a part of that conversation. And so they might begin excusing or engaging in certain apologetics, saying, well, they weren't really heathens, or they're not really heathens. But at the end of the day, if we're using all the same symbols and a lot of our practices, at least outwardly, appear the same, that becomes a problem. And if we don't invest in our identity, someone else will. And also, we are the ones that are responsible for educating others on heathenry, whether that be heathens in various levels, or other heathens or non-heathens alike. It could be government, it could be institutions, anyone. If inclusive heathens are not the ones that are out there educating, other people are going to be educating for their version of heathenry. And also, it's important that nothing about heathens takes place without heathens. So if there's going to be a conversation taking place about heathenry, we have to have a strong national voice to be able to meet that and to go where discussions are being had. And so what does the HCC do? So now I'm going to turn it over to William. I will still control the presentation, but I'll let William speak.
I guess I need to unmute to do that, eh? So as Eric pointed out, there was a lot of history. There was a lot that was, and they identified a gap in Canada as far that needed to be filled. So the HCC was formed to represent inclusive, respectful, and intelligent heathenry. To do that, we need to engage our membership. So we have membership. We reach out to them. We do polls, and we have other forums where they can speak and bring in their input to let us know what's important to the Canadian community, so we can work together and actually represent the Canadian heathen community. We're also working on building bridges of understanding. So I mean, if we're just talking amongst ourselves, that's not going to do any good. We're doing things like today, where we're meeting with you, letting you know what we're doing. There's been other organizations that we talked with as well that Ellen will get into a little bit more when she's speaking. Engaging with academia. So when research is being done about heathenry, about alternative religions, we wanted to give a touch point, a national touch point that has that has a basis with membership across the nation that academic can meet with, as well as with the media. Same kind of thing, and government. We'll also assist authorities with criminal and lawless activity. Now, not assist them with the activity, but we'll assist them in combating the activity. And we're working on educational resources for the public. So things like information packages that can go to employers, that our membership can provide to employers, that will help explain the religion and give them some sort of background to help work with as far as religious accommodations and such. What we don't do is we don't mediate between heathen groups. We're not going to, become get in the middle of those fights. There's no profit in that. We don't train clergy. There's other organizations that do that. That's not what we do. We don't proselytize. I can never say that word. We don't do it. I can't say it. Apostatize, that's it. And we don't take theological positions. Taking theological positions in an organization such as ours, where we're trying to represent the community, represent a united front for the community to outside organizations such as government and employers, it's not gonna help anyone. So that's something that we've avoided. Which brings us to our membership. So to define our membership, one of the things that we ask is that all members affirm through self-declaration that they're modern Germanic heathens. And a modern Germanic heathen is anyone participating in and identifying with religious behaviors, values, and beliefs which are modeled and associated with those of ancient Germanic heathens, and that these same behaviors, values, and beliefs form their primary religious identity. So that's now what constitutes ancient Germanic heathenry, because we're leaning back on that, we're referring to that, is from the earliest material and linguistic cultural divide, whereby Germanic people can be identified as distinct from other Proto-Indo-Europeans, pardon me, beginning from between approximately 2000 to 500 BCE and 750 to 100 BCE, and ending in the post-conversion Europe broadly between 800 and 1300 current era. Now, this is a very, as you'll notice, this is a very broad definition. That's by design. It gives us a very inclusive definition of modern Germanic heathenry. It allows us to not take theological positions because there isn't any theological grounding in it, and it retains the distinctiveness of heathenry from other religions. This allows us to, as Eric was saying, make sure that it's heathens that are speaking for heathenry. It's important that we do this, again, so we're not imposing theological positions on our membership. We're not limiting our membership by theological positions. And it also allows for dual faith heathens. And we've got to protect the definition, because this organization was developed by heathens and for heathens. It's got to stay by heathens and for heathens. The definition that we have allows for the greatest unity to allow us to work together. I mean, there's an ongoing joke that if you want, 10 opinions about something, ask 5 heathens. And we can't change it to maintain our legislative and judicial integrity. Yeah, we'll pass it on to Ellen.
All right. So what have we done so far? One of the things that we're really proud of is that we've been working with the Canadian Practitioners Network for the Prevention of Radicalization and Extremist Violence. So this is an organization that has the objective of de-radicalization. They focus on assessment, prevention, and intervention, and they collaborate with partners all over Canada. So we reached out to them, and they have actually been creating a national network with an interactive map that we are now on. So What that means is that anyone looking for information on heathen beliefs and symbols, that sort of thing, that are obviously often used by hate groups, can find us specifically so that we can sort of help educate them on what they're looking at. We've also done some preliminary work with police services on their policy on heathenry as distinct from other pagan religions. Eric can give you more information on that because he worked on that one. So our national council meets on a monthly basis, and we make our decisions using a policy governance model. But we also gather as members for monthly social meets and virtual town halls so that we can find out what our membership wants from us, and so that we can provide them with more information. We're really proud. We just released the first issue of our brand new bilingual newsletter. It contains updates from our various committees. It lists of upcoming events and members submitting content like photos and articles. I was amazed at the quality of work that was given to us for this issue, and I'm looking forward to helping edit many more. And we've also been taking on some accessibility initiatives. So this included a member survey on whether or not we are doing enough to represent equity seeking groups within our membership. And we are working really hard right now to make sure that all of our members are well represented, but also on a practical level, that everyone is able to access things like our social meetups. So we're in the research phase, but we're always trying to improve ourselves. So the road ahead, our vision of the future, what we're looking for. We want to grow our membership. We know there are heathens out there who are not members, who are inclusive and just don't know about us yet, getting the word out. Building Frith and connecting with other inclusive heathen and pagan groups in Canada. There are more than you would expect. So we want to be able to use the resources that they have and that we have and work together. We're in the process of developing educational resources for our own members, for other heathens, for the general uneducated public, and for government and business. And frankly, our vision of the future includes acting as models of inclusiveness in our daily lives and religious practices. If the thing you think of when you think of a modern heathen is an inclusive heathen, we're doing our job correctly. So how can you get involved? Well, you can become a member. If you fit our definition and you would like to, you can become a member. So you can unite with other inclusive heathens, help steer heathenry in the right direction. As a member, you have that reassurance that the other people who are members aren't going to just be a bunch of racists. I mean, it's hard sometimes to know if you can trust a group, right? Be represented, okay? Under the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, we have freedom of conscience and religion. But there are times when governments, employers, and institutions have tried to curtail those rights. We want to act as advocates. And be engaged, have your voice be heard, help us work towards truth and reconciliation. We're Canadians, we need to do that. Volunteer with us, help us grow the organization, and meet inclusive people like yourselves all across Canada. So, membership. If you fit our definition, you can become a member. It'll cost you $30 a year, which is not that bad. We also do have several memberships available under our benevolence fund, and you'll get a membership card. You will be able to join our members group on Facebook, the Discord server, be able to come to meetings, participate in the census, and participate in elections. You will receive updates from the National Council, and you will end up with a beautiful copy of our newsletter. And if you don't want to become a member or don't feel you fit the definition, how can you help us achieve our goals? Well, support us and collaborate with us on our initiatives. We are all stronger together than we are divided. And let us know if there are interesting inclusive events going on, and we will spread those to our membership as well. And again, just be a good model of inclusiveness in your religious practice. The more people associate this with inclusiveness, the better everything is. So I'm going to leave you to Eric in case anyone has any questions.
Yeah, so we figured we'd open up to some questions. I know that was a lot of information to take in. People might be curious. I would ask Kuno if there are questions, if you can read them out to me, because right now I'm presently looking at the presentation and I can't see the chat.
I've got the chat here. I can read it for you, Eric.
Oh, lovely, lovely. Okay.
If someone plans to move to Canada within the next few years, is membership an option or is waiting until one moves best?
So by definition, through the bylaws, you would have to be living in Canada. There are certain caveats there. You do not have to be a citizen. We're not a citizenship kind of or birthright style organization. It's really, where you reside. So if you reside in Canada, one of the caveats there is that if you are deployed through the military or through government, public service, or in any other way, you have to live abroad, but your principal residence was in Canada, then that's a certain allowance that is made. But it is best to move first, live in Canada, and then get your membership. You won't be able to otherwise.
Oh. So the next question is, can you expand on what you mean by dual faith heathens that you mentioned in your presentation? Can I take this one, bud?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So for example, in my kindred, we have 2 members who not only worship with us and practice heathen work with heathen practices, they also worship other pantheons and have other religious practices. So they're multi-faith within themselves, and there's nothing within heathenry that precludes that. There's also nothing within the HCC that precludes that, as long as you self-identify as heathenry being your primary faith practice. Did I miss anything there, Eric?
Oh, no, absolutely.
Perfect. And did that answer your question? I'm going to go with Sabrino. Perfect. What have been your strongest organizational tools to achieve the goals of your organization? I like this. This is a good one.
Sorry, can you repeat that? The strongest?
Your strongest organizational tools to achieve the goals of your organization.
Well, Ellen, did you want to take a stab at that one?
Okay. I'm actually just trying to find it. Oh, see, I have entirely too many tabs open. Oh, yeah.
While you're looking, can I give an opinion?
Yes, please do. Please do.
Our membership is fantastic. We have our national council had so many such a wide range of talents. And when we don't have anybody who can fill a need within the national council, when we reach out to our membership, they've stepped up marvelously. But just a while back, we were talking about designing this presentation. We have one member who, what he does is he puts together branding for organizations, and he stepped up and helped us out with that. Our members do all of our writing. They do all of our talking from the point of view as sometimes I flounder and burn out with TG every so often. Yeah. Yeah.
So I would say for at least from the HCC perspective, what we did early on with setting up the National Council and ensuring that it is large and broad. We can have through our because we're a not-for-profit organization, we can have upward as low as 3 or as high as 16 directors. And we also can have up to 16 national councillors. So there's one for each province and territory, as well as 3 for directorships. And right now, we currently, I believe we have 10 national councillors, and it just makes for spreading the workload much easier. And we have various committees. So we have, as far as an organizational chart goes, we have a few committees. There's a communication outreach committee. There's communications committee. There are a handful of others that I think Ellen would be best to kind of elaborate on.
So that's one of the ways we've been sort of organizing ourselves, is just that we have committees and that we meet on a regular basis outside of our normal national council meetings, which are like generally a little bit more formal. I'm part of the Education and Outreach Committee, and we've been meeting on a bi-weekly basis in order to get the educational stuff written, do the newsletter, that kind of thing. From a technical point of view, the thing I was actually trying to look up is we have our graphic designer, Walter, is fantastic, but he set us up with this thing called Trello, which is just a really good way of organizing what everyone's working on, so you can see it in a really visual way. That is one of the tools that really helped us get the newsletter out on time. But I'm not gonna lie, like we do as national councillors, we take on a lot, and being able to go to members of the membership, like, and just go like, listen, I know you're good at this and I am slammed. Can you handle this for me? Has been such a lifesaver here.
So the chat is blowing up right now. Is it Kuno? Suno is very excited about this. So you'll have to pass on the information of what program that is to him. He's also asking what the current total membership of the HCC is right now. And there's another question after that. But I want to say we're pushing 50 at this point, aren't we?
Yeah, we're between 50 and 55 at my last check. Yeah.
So yeah, and then the next question is, to what extent are you focusing on strengthening ties with the larger pagan community? Since you're here talking to us, I assume this is something you're interested in.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I was going to say, okay. Yeah, go ahead. That's one of our main focuses. That is part of our that is one of our main focuses, not just within the pagan community though, but with other religious organizations as well. So it's taking time, just developing those relationships and making those contacts. But yeah. What did you have to add?
Absolutely. I just want to say it's absolutely important for us to get out and discuss with different groups and other pagan groups as well, because a lot of us who have been involved in paganism, polytheism, heathenry for so many years and decades, we see organizations come and go, right? Yeah. And and a lot of organizations develop oftentimes through very specific theological views. Maybe they are more for like regional gatherings, but our main mandate was, we see that there is a crisis for heathenry that we're presently in, and fastly or quickly coming upon the horizon, is that there are people out there who are misusing or using our beliefs, using our symbols in a way that is absolutely detrimental to heathenry in general. And we have to meet with different groups to kind of educate and demystify and rationalize, normalize heathenry in a way that makes it seem like it's a is what it is. It's a very very approachable, very I don't want to say normal, but for all intents and purposes, to those who may not be familiar with heathenry, that hey, like there are heathens living next door and they're just doing their thing, and that's perfectly normal and great. And meeting with other pagan organizations, kind of showing that viewpoint that we're not just some organization that's coming up, for this, that, or the other. We're here to put inclusive heathenry on the Canadian map, and we are striving to become the broader voice of heathenry in Canada.
But one of the differences between heathenry and a lot of other parts of paganism is that we do have this unfortunate history of racism. And I think that part of not just limiting ourselves to talking to other like polytheists is that we are hardly the only religion to have people in our midst who are actively causing harm, right? And so working together with other non-pagan, non-heathen religious groups, I think we're going to find that there are a lot of things in common, there as well.
Absolutely.
100%. So we've got a comment. TG had to reinvent itself a couple of times to get to this point. It's great to see your process, how you have clearly defined what you're working on and what you won't be doing, and how it informs your processes. The OG Western Revival. I love this. So
thank you.
Nice to get props. Thanks. Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm not too sure how we are on time.
We're good.
This is the
ahead of
last
schedule.
presentation of the
Right.
day. You guys can take all the time you
lovely.
want.
Okay. Well, let's as long as there's questions, we're here to answer.
Yeah. Do you want to unshare your screen, Eric, so you can
Sure.
see your face?
Yeah, absolutely.
You've got such a glorious beard. You really need to show it off, bud.
Right.
I'm feeling distinctly underbearded here.
Yeah.
I may need to invest in something.
That's your unique flavor though, right? So Sophia says, when does it start to feel oneself to be in the midst of an Iron Age renaissance of sorts in that? I love it. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about there. It's I hadn't heard of this organization before Eric brought it up, so I'm super excited to learn more about what you guys are doing too.
Yeah, it was another thing too. As soon as I saw, because those of you may remember that I was present at the Cumbrighton last year as well, and I loved it so much. And when this opportunity came up, I was like, yeah, for sure, we have to go to the Cumbrighton. We have to be in this space, and this is the place where we already share many values in common. So it's definitely important.
Well, and I think there's definitely an opportunity for work together to get to the point to be supportive as far as when we need to reach out to government, when we need to look at legislative changes. As far as I know, within the pagan community in Canada, the HCC is kind of unique as a political entity rather than a theological entity. And I think as pagans in general, we need to do more of that to be able to advocate for ourselves within, in a government that's inundated with much larger religious organizations and is based on, the reality of the situation in Western society. It's a numbers game. If you want to be heard, you've got to have the numbers to have the voice. So.
But you also have to speak the same language as the government. And honestly, one thing a bureaucracy respects is another bureaucracy. It's not a dirty word, right?
Nope. And that it's playing the game by their rules and making the game work for us, right? So which when I was introduced to the idea a few years back, I was really excited to see it because it's something that I've been pushing with some of my kin get started and work on, and I didn't know where to start. So it's nice to see this kind of political organization happening within the, also within the bigger pagan community. Yeah, there was there's someone saying that there was a heavy overlap between Gaulish and Germanic groups too, so it's fitting. Out in Saskatchewan, I'm pretty isolated, so I do, a lot of my interaction is with the pan-pagan community, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of these organizations expand within pan-paganism. So, yeah. Sorry, I kind of just went off there.
Yeah, we're definitely, thanks, Kuno. Yeah, we're definitely looking to work and collaborate with other organizations. Obviously, given that we are like as William said, a more political kind of administrative organization. We're not getting bogged down too much into the nitty gritty of belief. Where we want to work together with others is definitely moving forward for, not only heathenry, but polytheism in general, to become more and more inclusive and to be what others think of when they hear of heathenry or polytheism, or, in your case, Gaulish polytheism, right?
And just a better understanding of what polytheism is in the general community. I mean, the reality of the situation is a lot of people don't know a whole lot about it.
True. And the other thing too is, like, we have to get away from a lot of the mysticism and the myths and a lot of, when it comes to sacred time and a lot of our creation stuff and what have you, that's all great in our own spaces.
Yeah.
But when we step out to, speak with government or other organizations, they need to know, like, what does this mean, practically. And, so big ideas about, like, oh, we've been a distinct, belief system for 40,000 years and all this stuff, like no, we're a modern religious movement.
Yeah.
And we have, distinctive roots, and some of those roots are problematic, and we are moving forward from that. We're being better today.
And I'm a firm believer in we are our deeds, right? So I'm not a heathen just when I'm in ritual space. I'm a heathen when I go to work every day and I wear a pantsuit, right? Like, I am just as much a heathen then as I am in ritual space, and bringing that forward out into the world, and not lying about, to people about what my religious views are, has been enormously freeing in my life. And if I can be an example of, like, oh, look, she's a heathen. Yeah, she believes in a bunch of weird gods, but, like, she's cool and, like, quote unquote normal. Like, yeah, let's do that. Let's make this normal for people, right?
Yeah.
Yes, heathens and pants.
Yes.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right. I think I don't know if we had any last. Do you want to do like a last little round table, or final remarks before we sign off? But yeah, there's no sense in taking up all the time.